The fifth expression of Taurus is authority, beginning with Taurus 21, which is the finger pointing at an open book. Here we have the operation of discriminating mind. However open we are to spiritual messages, there is a need for us to just check out that it makes sense. A lot of people who are on a path of studying the mysteries sincerely, they just don't apply the appropriate discipline of mind to check out the reasonableness of what they believe. Certain things cannot be. We have constraints. We're living in a physical world with certain logic and requirements and limitations and implications that goes along with physicality. And that's essential. That's the essence of where we are. We are physical. And some teachings just ignore that. The corruption of mind that occurs when you start to believe something which is just not true is to be avoided. We must discriminate in order to hold the mind clear. And what we read in books is partly true, shall we call it, partly not true, partly nonsense, partly subjective. Anyone who writes a book is a person. They're coming from a personal position. Just because it's written down, it doesn't mean it's right. And this applies to every book that's ever been written. None of them represent the whole truth. All of them are subject to some extent to interpretation, and that interpretation is subjective, necessarily, and appropriately so. So, Taurus 21, understanding the importance of being discriminating about what's going into your mind. However, Taurus 22, the white dove over the troubled waters, we're given the idea here of the possibility that there are signs, not written in a book now, but written in nature, non-verbal clues, what people like to call synchronicity, whereas synchronicity is a much wider phenomenon than that. Everything is synchronous. All of the messages in life that we get, whether they're in favor of what we're hoping to do next or against that, if it's stopping us, it's synchronous to do that. In other words, we should look for signs to encourage us or discourage us. And when we're looking for signs to validate our feelings about what we might like to do, we must be open to the possibility that the answer is no, it's just not the right time yet. You know, is this the right man for me? Is this the right woman? Is this the right job for me? And you have to be open to the possibility that the answer is no. If you are not willing to have that as a potential answer, then you don't have the right to look for signs that say yes either. Because without no, yes is meaningless. So if you're one of these people that looks for synchronicity to support your actions, try and look for things that block you as well, or you're missing the whole point. You're missing the magic of reading signs. So Taurus 22 is teaching us to read the signs properly. Don't just look for yes. Look for yes, no, and maybe. And remember, maybe means no. If something's right, it's right and it works. If it's not the right time, if there's something not quite right, it doesn't quite work. In other words, it doesn't work. So maybe, which is a body feeling, not quite sure, maybe, that means no. Yes, you're already doing it. If the answer is yes, you're doing it. So when we are able to do that and read the signs in nature, add that to our wisdom of studying the written word in a discriminating way, then this gives us the facility of knowing to change what can be changed, and to leave alone what can be left alone, and should be left alone, should be changed. We do the right thing, and the right thing, which will be to take action or to refrain from taking action, won't it? Then we just align ourselves with right action by stillness or movement. And when we do that, then we improve upon the nature of things. This is the jewellery shop image of Taurus 23. How we learn to improve upon nature. And another image would not only be a jeweller who takes an ugly hunk of rock and shapes it until it makes a very beautiful gemstone. A gardener would do that with a bit of land and so on. We can improve upon nature, if we know what to change and what not to change. So in a garden, you'd know to leave certain of the magnificent trees in place. You wouldn't take those away. Whereas you might want to cut the bramble away and shape the landscape differently. You'd just know some theory, you'd read some signs, you'd find this balance, and you'd operate your own creative input onto natural resources until they become more beautiful. This idea of beautifying things to make them better than they were is inherent within our way of being. That's what we do. We humans do like to change things. We like to make our mark on the environment where we live. Not everybody does it in a beautiful way. Often usefulness is the priority. Sometimes simple amassing of wealth is, which has got us into a lot of trouble. But we do improve upon nature, and we do that by balancing the two aspects of mind. Now, in Taurus 24, we have this mounted Indian with scalp locks. This is a magnificent image of command. And this is somebody who can control the application of their aggression. So when we are shaping nature, we must be very careful not to rape the land, to forcefully push our will against that which we can influence, just because we can. We have to control our aggression, in other words. And we're not very good at doing that as a species. So if you have something in Taurus 24, you've got a bit of a role to play, I would suggest, as a leader, a commander, somebody who can actually take command of a situation and make sure that an appropriate amount of aggression is brought to bear, not too much, a controlled amount. So it's very definitely an image of aggression in the sense of assertiveness with punch, overcoming a problem, and doing it in a way that other people just can't do. It's an image of some power, this one. And yet this control of the animal nature is what authorizes the right of command. And this is the image of this expression of Taurus, authority. And this authority comes from having learned to appropriately change nature, to appropriately assimilate wisdom, to appropriately interpret the signs, to have this facility of reading the situation and the limits of the situation, and then the authority to take command. It's a very powerful image, this 24 Taurus. And this leads to a position of social relevance. In Taurus 25, you have the well-kept public park. So this is a community project. We like parks. It's great. If there weren't parks in a city, we'd all go a bit crazy, wouldn't we? There needs to be more green in our lives, perhaps, than we're getting. So we want parks, and we want there to be the possibility of sharing big projects with our community. And those big projects have to be managed, and that requires authority. Very often it's an institutional authority, the Parks Commission or whatever. And yet this institution inevitably has a leader, and that leader would be stepping on the shoulders of the Indian with the scalp locks, Taurus 24. So we can see this progression from being discriminating in wisdom, reading natural signs, and improving upon nature, because we've got that balance of theory and felt intuition. And then taking command, taking the authority of a situation and being the boss, because we can do that in a reasonable way, not too much, not allowing our aggression to go too far. And then we get to be social leaders. We get to take on big social projects, and to do that with the level of authority that Taurus expresses.